All right, what's going on, everybody? It is Tim Bursons here and Trent McCloskey
What's going on?
with another episode for you guys. Well, we haven't really come up with a name for it yet, but we're kind of just batting around the idea of like train, eat, live with amplified metabolism, with an amplified metabolism. I don't know. We'll come up with a name
Yeah,
eventually, but
the merging of the two.
basically talking about the bioenergetic view of health, understanding the body from an energetic perspective, understanding how the way that you produce energy has an effect on your health, and how your health is really about enjoying your body and about having a higher quality of living. So today we wanted to talk about ox bile. Is that right, Trent?
Yeah, that's the first thing we want to talk about, ox bile, and why your
Yeah.
body actually needs bile to be processing and digesting fats.
Yeah.
Hmm.
And so I think that maybe that's a good place to start is like going through a primer of like what happens with digestion and like why you need bile acid to begin with.
Hmm. And
Yeah.
with this, like beginning of ox bile, I guess we can kind of start this out with talking about like the synergy of the gallbladder and the liver, which the gallbladder, you can think of that as kind of like a storage unit for bile, which bile is used to start digesting fats. And the liver can't produce enough bile immediately to digest the fats as you eat them. So it needs that storage unit in your gallbladder, essentially.
Hmm. Yeah. And so then you eat, say you eat a big fatty meal. Bile is specifically helps the bile acids help to break down fat to because so fat is obviously doesn't mix with water. Oil and water don't mix.
Hmm.
So when you have, the primary contents of your stomach are going to be water based. You eat the fat. You need some way to um, assimilate the fat to keep it dissolved in the to emulsify it. You need to emulsify it in some way. The bile acids do that, and then they help to um, help with the absorption in the small intestine when it gets down there.
Right, right.
Um,
So then
so I
kind of,
think,
or
yeah,
go
go
ahead.
for it.
I was going to say, like, getting to the point of like talking about the problem state, most people, their gallbladder, you can think of it as it starts to fill with like sludge. Then it has more of a hard time releasing bile to keep up with digestion. That's whenever problems start to arise, which we wanted to
Hmm.
dive into and start to speak to those issues essentially. Because on the way like worse side of it, it's like some people start to have such an issue with their gallbladder that some actually get it removed, which is
Hmm.
a terrible, terrible thing to do. But yeah, go ahead.
Yeah, and I think that a lot of those kind of people have to take ox bile as a supplement in order to digest fats, or else they just won't digest them.
Hmm.
But I think the bigger original cause from that is going to be the liver, and
Hmm.
that's because the liver does use the bile and the gallbladder as a form of detoxification. So if the bile has or the liver has too much fat in it, and it's especially if it's the bad fats, which I know we wanted to talk about at some point as well.
For sure.
And obviously, the liver is responsible for filtering out toxins in it's your body's detoxifying system. And so one of the ways it does that is to put it in the bile. Now, if you are out in nature eating the way that our ancestors ate, or the way that even primer species like apes and stuff like that were eating, you'd be eating a lot more fiber in your diet. And so like the bile acid binds to the fiber, takes it out of your system, and so your liver has to make new bile acid. So that
Hmm.
fiber is going to bind all the toxic bile acid, take it out of your system. You're going to create fresh bile acid, and everything would be good. But that assumes that your liver is working properly so that you can actually create the bile acid. And
Hmm.
it also assumes that you're eating enough fiber that's going to bind that. If that's the case, then the detoxifying system is working properly and you can keep everything smooth. But like you said, in today's age with unhealthy livers, and especially with like low thyroid, low metabolism, which is so important for liver health, you get to a
Hmm.
point where you just have this sludgy bile acid that's not really doing its job, and then it's getting reabsorbed in the large intestine because it's
Hmm.
not binding to fiber. And so we have this vicious cycle that starts to go on.
Exactly, and not even just that. It's the bad diet. It's the sedentary lifestyle. It's the even like environmental stress. It's all adding to these factors. And then we're kind of like speaking to it at like the gallbladder and the liver. So if the gallbladder is kind of getting sludgy in a way, that's where the issues start to arise. And I want to touch on like it kind of starts to create this environment for I believe it's neurotoxins that start to get released, and that starts causing like all the disease and things that if not treated well enough and it goes prolonged long enough, that's whenever all the problems start to arise.
Yeah. And I think what you just said was really important too, because uh, as you go through, as you start to learn really about like all the different systems in the body and how they're interconnected, and how they're all related. They're all like, the way I view it is like they're all spiraling. This is causing this. This is causing this. This is causing. They're going back and forth. And so it's like you have to start raising them up together, because otherwise they're going to keep them. All the systems are going to keep the other systems at that lower level. So like when we're looking at the gallbladder liver silo, we're looking in that direction. We can see like we said, how, you know, poor bile creation is going to get reabsorbed and then put more pressure on the liver, which is then going to create, you know, worse bile. And then it's that cycle that keeps going. But at the same time, there's connections to your gut bacteria, which is going to be triggering things in your brain, which is going to be suppressing, you know, you said neurotoxins, to suppressing thyroid. And it's just this like vicious cycle where it's like all these different systems all calibrate. It's actually kind of beautiful when you really step back and you kind of see like, holy shit, our bodies are doing all these crazy things at the same time.
It's I think it's like a very humbling thing that most people don't think about, because I know you want to talk about like more body awareness, and I think almost having that knowledge, like, damn, your body is literally supporting you and doing whatever the heck you want it to do throughout the day. It's like, take a moment to appreciate everything it's doing. And I think coming from that point of view, you almost like, I mean, personally, I don't want to go too off on a tangent, but you almost appreciate things more, and you start to take care of yourself a little bit more because you're understanding everything that's going on. But we'll maybe save that for the body awareness, and then we want to touch on too. But I also, I want to dive in. So like, why would somebody need to start supplementing with ox bile? Because I know I just experimented with it. I know you did too a little bit. It had some awesome, you know, things with that. But why would somebody initially want to start supplementing? Because at the same time, you almost want to treat it as like a healing process and give your, you know, supplementing with it so your liver can actually heal and cleanse itself and so on.
Yeah, and the ideal being that you're not going to stay on it for the long term, because you want to use it as a healing agent to get your body to a place where it's now able to do it on its own.
Right.
So, you know, we just mentioned about like the fiber binding the toxic bile acid, but even then you're going to be producing this bile acid that's not really going to be doing its job of breaking down the fats that it needs to break. So you're going to have fat malabsorption. Now, fat's really important because, especially saturated fat, because it protects the liver and it protects all the cells from free radicals, and it keeps them solid. It keeps them keeps the boundary of the cell membrane able to keep out the like things from the outer environment of the cell that the cell doesn't want to come inside. The saturated fats are really important for that. So if you kind of think about it, you're not absorbing the fats right, and your liver is having a hard time detoxifying all of the stuff that it has to go through day in, day out. And you're in a situation where now you can't get the fats in because you aren't producing good bile, but you can't produce the good bile unless you have the good fats to create it. So again, it's one of those cycles. So if you supplement with ox bile, it gives you a chance that you can actually, especially in a big high fatty meal, that you can actually absorb those, the good saturated fats or the good monounsaturated fats. Your liver can actually use those appropriately, and all your cells can use this appropriately. And now it's kind of like taking that negative spiral and taking one step up on one side of the scale, so that potentially we can now flip, you know, start to raise things overall, so that now get to a place where your liver is able to produce bile on its own and you don't need to supplement anymore.
100%. And that's a little side note there for any like extreme outliers listening to this, where you actually had your whole gallbladder removed, then you have to supplement with ox bile every single meal for the rest of your life to keep that job going on. But again,
and I know someone who, or I know someone who knows someone who has had their gallbladder out and doesn't take ox bile, and they're okay. Like, they could eat meals, but I can guarantee you they're not absorbing fat well. I can guarantee you they're not, their cells aren't functioning as well as they could. Their liver's not functioning as well as it could. So, you know, if it helps a healthy person, then someone without a gallbladder, it's definitely important.
Yeah, 100%. Which, would you say that's common? I don't know how common that is for someone getting.
I don't know. I'm not sure.
Yeah, I hope there's better methods. But anyway, yeah, that's a different story. But that's the thing too. I think that's also combined like with you're allowing yourself to cleanse itself. And that's also, I think, related. A lot of people have, well, first I was going to say, from the end of the spectrum, it's like a two-way street, right? If you're starting to supplement with ox bile, you're really not going to get the main benefits, but you also have to start improving your diet on the other end and getting in more beneficial fats, like you were saying. Because if you're not doing that, then you're almost just like, you're not going to get a benefit, because literally what you were mentioning is like literally the whole cell membrane is made up of fats. That whole phospholipid membrane, it's like, if you're feeding yourself bad fats, which I'm excited to touch on, then you're just not going to be able to make new cells that can operate properly. And that's like literally the basis of then moving down into like a low metabolic rate, a disease state if you're not giving your body all the like bare minimum resources to then build and structure new cells properly. That's when all the issues arise, essentially.
Absolutely. And so obviously we said eating more fiber, especially, and okay, so I wouldn't eat high fiber meal with the ox bile. It kind of is counterproductive because the fiber will bind the ox bile, which is the healthy bile that you want to use. But in other meals of the day, I know in Ignite Your Metabolism, I talk about doing kind of like a fruit fast or a fruit and veggie fast, which is instead of doing a full intermittent fasting during the whole day, you eat nothing but fruits and healthy sugars and veggies, which all have high fiber.
Pretty much like a no fat diet.
Sort of, but I wouldn't. I mean, I wouldn't be going for like rice or like starches or anything like that. I would be sticking with fruits and veggies and stuff like that. So you do that for the day, and then have like a big meal at night. If you're going to supplement with ox bile, I would highly recommend doing something like that, because throughout the day you're going to be getting all this fiber that's going to be just clearing out all of the bile acid that's toxic. And then at night, when you have like the big fatty meal, you take the ox bile, digest the good fats, and kind of replenish the bile acid that's kind of circulating through your system. So you kind of get both sides of the coin, the detoxification and then like the absorption of the healthy fats.
That's awesome you said that. That's actually a really cool protocol, actually, that I might mess around with. But I know whenever I supplement with it, whenever we were talking about it, I didn't necessarily follow that to a T. I just know just taking it more with meals, I felt much more calmer, and my hands and feet were on fire. I was like, wow, I wonder if I wasn't like, I knew I wasn't like in like a problem state, but I felt like I just like tipped me up a little bit better. And I really like that. I mean, and I really
everyone can always tip up higher, and it always feels better when your health.
Yeah, exactly. And I think you and I kind of like getting carried away with that of like, we're feeling pretty awesome now, but it's like, how much can we push it? You know what I mean? Like, but
that's the fun.
Yeah, exactly. I ended up, I supplemented with it after a huge steak dinner, and also after I ate a huge pint of Jenny's ice cream. So like, it was like really, really high fat, probably up there, probably getting in like 60, 70 grams in like that evening kind of sitting. It was a lot.
Which is rough for someone, for anyone, even in a healthy state who's not used to eating that much fat. Usually you'll have some sort of like digestive disturbances from that, even if you're in a healthy state. But if you take the bile acid, I actually think that that's a great way to test it for anyone who wants to try it. If you get the bile acid supplement and do a specifically high fat meal, I would recommend before bed or something, and then take 1 or 2 tabs of it and see what effect getting a big influx of really good well-digested fats into your system, what it'll do for you. Because I also noticed like amazing benefits the very first time. They like trickled off after a while. It's not something that I would say it always has that big, dramatic effect. But it's something like, if you on and off are doing it whenever you have like a bigger fat meal, it helps to just kind of like keep your digestive system in order and keep you feeling good and getting those fats in. But the main reason that's going to feel so good is because all of the steroid hormones, all of the protective steroid hormones require fat and cholesterol in order to be created in the first place. So one of the biggest things is that if you have fat malabsorption and the bile acid isn't working properly to absorb those fats, then you're not going to be creating the steroid hormones. The mother of all steroid hormones, pregnenolone, that's the first one, breaks down into progesterone or DHEA, and then from there goes into all the other steroid hormones. You're not going to be producing those. The flow of the river will be very, very shallow, if you want to put it that way, if you want to think about it as like flowing through the system. And a big influx of fat is going to be like a dam bursting and all this water rushing through it. So that first initial time of taking it, you're getting all these good fats. And so it's like your steroid system will just get ramped up and it'll feel really good. Yeah. And like, obviously the goal from there is to keep the flow going naturally without having to take it. But but I think doing what you'd said is like a really high fat meal, like something really good too, like good steak, good ice cream, like something like that. And then take the bile acid, you'll notice it. You'll definitely notice it.
Oh, 100%. And I think you touched on something that I wanted to kind of clear the air with. For somebody that has like super high cholesterol, that looking at it from perspective, it's like from the medical view, that person might just get cholesterol medication, which we're not a fan of medication here because it's not actually like you're not doing the things that are going to allow your body to heal itself, right? It's almost like, if you have wood and you're trying to build a house, but that wood has termites, and you build the house, but then you just paint over it. It's like, you're not going to see like any holes from the termites, but then soon you will. You know what I mean? The paint doesn't fix that, the paint being the medication, right? Mm-hmm. So it's like, actually, I would recommend like you need to still be doing things to get off your medication, and that be the end goal. But high cholesterol kind of just means like your liver is cleansing itself. So I wanted to touch on that a little bit because usually people get the wrong idea and they hop on medication, they have high cholesterol. So really it's like, what can we do to actually start fixing your liver, which is related.
Mm-hmm. And, well, it's also that's perfectly within the conversation of what we're having, because you create bile acid in a similar way to how you create steroid hormones, mm-hmm. and that is from cholesterol. You use cholesterol to create the bile acid, mm-hmm. and so if your cholesterol is high, again, like you said, a lot of people are like, okay, well, we just need to lower it. Mm-hmm. It's a marker of, they say it's a marker of heart disease, which just as a quick sidebar, I was kind of floored when I actually looked at it, because it's not at all. Like high cholesterol is not at all a marker of heart disease. In fact, it's like just as many, something, I forgot the exact statistic, but it was something like just as many people who have heart attacks have low cholesterol as the people who have high cholesterol. Like it's literally a 50-50. It doesn't matter. It doesn't
so that means like we have to look a little bit deeper and like what is actually going on in a whole, and not just be like, oh, this person has high cholesterol, let's try to lower it. Yeah.
Right. And so like the cholesterol is going to be pumping out, or the liver is going to be pumping out the cholesterol for the use of the body. That's what LDL is. Mm-hmm. LDL is the one that your liver creates and sends it to the cells. Well, if your LDL is high, that either means your liver is producing too much of it, mm-hmm. or your cells aren't using it. And I think in most cases, it's your cells aren't using it.
Oh yeah, I would agree with that 100%. Yeah.
Which often means that you're not creating the steroid hormones, because you need thyroid and vitamin A to combine mm-hmm. with cholesterol, mm-hmm. or you're not creating bile acid appropriately, and so you're mm-hmm. not absorbing the fats well, and so you're having a deranged metabolism that's causing your liver to be messed up, which is the source of all this, and we can go in circles and circles talking about
that. Exactly. So I guess kind of touching back on that, if you're working at that, say if your cholesterol is high, you got to look at it from both ends of supplementing with ox bile, but then again, improving your diet on a whole, like getting in good quality, grass-fed butter, good quality fats like coconut oil, eggs. That's a great source of vitamin A and choline as well to help your liver as well. Yeah. And even like raw milk, I was going to say like really good dairy products. It's hard to get raw milk, but like at least if you can get like I know I have a milk I found a store nearby that has low temp pasteurization milk, along with non-homogenized milk as well. So that's like the best I can get, the closest thing to raw milk. But yeah, good fats like that, vitamin A, choline is going to help support your liver as you're working at everything from both sides of the mm-hmm. equation. Yeah.
Yeah. And I think it was, another thing that typically happens, I mentioned the liver pumping out cholesterol and pumping out LDL at a high rate. Well, a lot of times what that could also be a sign of is fatty liver disease, which is basically when your liver can't export its fat into cholesterol fast enough. Mm-hmm. I talk about that in one of my videos on choline, a long time ago, filmed like 2 years ago, because choline is an important, I don't know if it's technically an amino acid or what it is, but it actually allows your liver to export the fat by combining with the fat to form cholesterol, mm-hmm. and then pump it out into your bloodstream for your body to use it. So if your liver is fatty, it's going to be slowed down. It's going to be really sluggish. It's going to be congested. That's part of what prevents the bile from being formed appropriately. Mm-hmm. And whenever we get into our discussion about insulin and diabetes in the future, mm-hmm. we'll come back to this, because a fatty liver is a really good cause, a really primary cause in a lot of cases for diabetes. Mm-hmm. But I think it was Chris Masterjohn has a really good article where he goes into a study that showed that if you ate a diet that was, I think it was like, I forget the exact percentages, but it was really high, really, really high in saturated fat, mm-hmm. that no matter how much alcohol and sugar you ate, your liver would not get fatty.
No, wow.
Because it was completely protected by the saturated fats. But mm-hmm. as soon as you introduce corn oil or canola oil or any of the polyunsaturated fats, the highly mm-hmm. unstable ones, mm-hmm. then it was like fat liver city. Like it was just all over, like,
yeah,
just raised up. Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah, which that's why I'm excited to go into the bad fats of like actually like again, it's giving your body like the raw materials it needs to make new cells. Whenever you can't make new cells that function appropriately, that's what leads to all these issues. So it
Yeah.
all starts at like the basis of what you're putting in. I guess it's like that analogy. You really are what you eat, you know, because your cells are whatever the raw materials you're giving it. That's what it's making new cells out of, essentially. Because you're
Yeah,
constantly
exactly.
replacing even like your eyes to your liver to your stomach to your lungs, depending on the time frame. But you're constantly making new cells. So like after set months, year, whatever, you're replacing your whole organs because all those cells are replacing essentially.
Yeah, exactly. And man, there's just like five topics that sprung into my mind
Just
while you're talking
boom.
about it. Yeah,
Yeah. Yeah.
amazing. But because I mean, when we talk about like this really ties into the core of what bioenergetics is about when you're creating energy healthy and efficient, it's like having that supercharged battery where you can use the energy for anything that your body needs to use it for.
Mm-hmm.
And one of the most important things as far as like considering like the adaptive component to the organism that we call the human body or whatever
Mm-hmm.
is its ability to meet the environment when in a situation that the organism is not prepared for, to be able to change with the environment in order to survive, to be able to keep living. And the fastest way to do that is to have a higher cell turnover rate, because if
Mm-hmm.
your cells are the energy is so good that they can just keep creating, die create at a faster speed.
Mm-hmm.
Well, now you're able to morph the clay more to
Mm-hmm.
meet whatever the stressor is. If you are having a super slow cell turnover rate because you don't have the energy to create cells, and you're being attached to and holding on to the cells you have and not willing, I'm saying this from a broader perspective, not willing to like let them die to create new ones from
Right.
that like let go energy flow kind of state.
Mm-hmm.
If you're unable to do that, then when something happens, now these cells are under this stress, and you won't let them die to create the new cells that can handle this stress, that are now able to adapt to that. So it's like you're trying to mold this clay, but it's like hardening already.
Mm-hmm.
You kind of see that?
Yeah,
So
I
like
like how you're explaining it. Yeah, that makes a
when you
lot of
keep
sense.
the clay really malleable, which is to say when you keep the cells continually turning over,
Mm-hmm.
then you have a much higher adaptive
Mm-hmm.
ability, and you can meet stressors in the world. We talked about this in the last episode, that in a really healthy state, any stressor that happens in the world would be like, boom, stressor. Okay, now we're back to normal. Now we're back to healthy. But what happens too often is that we're in this slow energy, low energy, slow metabolism state where the stressor happens, and instead of going boom, rise back up, it's like
Mm-hmm.
boom, and then it's like, gotta
Yeah,
gotta
exactly.
get
Yes.
back to healthy. Like,
Yes.
yeah.
And I see, I love in looking at it from this perspective, I love it because if you take that over to like the mainstream fitness industry, it gets stopped at calories in versus calories out. And that's
Mm-hmm.
like way, way, way too general, because what you just explained, if you're on that unhealthy side, that's what actually leads to more weight gain and obesity and more health issues down the road. Whereas if you're on that high metabolic spectrum, you're not gaining that kind of fat. And if you, I almost found this maybe a different conversation. If you're in the healthy state and you are still putting on body fat, it's more of like a healthy fat gain, where it's not just like all like, again, I know genetics may like play a role in this too, but like I noticed like if I was in more of a stress state, I would accumulate way more body fat as opposed to like more of an evenly distributed, healthy looking body fat, if that makes sense. That's a little bit off
Mm-hmm.
topic. But what I mean is like, yeah, looking at it from this perspective and not like, oh, I ate too many calories. It's like, no, what are you actually putting into your body? Why is your body actually gaining weight? Because it's probably under some sort of stress, which can come from multiple different things like we already talked about. So yeah, in the healthy state, you can actually respond to those stressors so much more better, which will in turn improve the quality of your life in every single area. And
Yeah.
yeah, as opposed to like life, you're getting the life sucked out of you in a sense too.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
And I do want to talk more about fat loss and muscle gain. I think we should
Mm-hmm.
do it in a separate conversation.
For sure. Yeah,
But I
definitely.
will say real quick that there is a very good model to understand fat gain as far as endotoxin
Mm-hmm.
from
Yes.
bacteria in your gut, slowing down the liver, and then the liver having a hard time digesting, so that it keeps the bacteria going, creating more
Mm-hmm.
endotoxin. Kind of similar to what we're talking about.
Yeah.
But I think the idea of like we have to burn fat for fuel
Mm-hmm.
is a little misguided, because fat is a structural component. Both
Yes.
protein and fat are structural components,
Mm-hmm.
and carbs are, any kind of carbohydrate is in an ideal state a fuel.
Mm-hmm.
You can if the winter gets cold, you can start taking the siding off of your house and throwing it in the fire to keep you warm. But you're taking down the structure of the house. It would be much better if you just had fuel to burn that wasn't a part of the house.
Yes.
Whereas the fat is like the membranes, and the protein are the DNA and all the nucleotides and all that stuff. So, but again, we'll dive more into that as far as like fat loss recommendations later on.
Exactly.
Yeah. But getting back to just the bile acid, do you have the bottle with you? What's the one we use?
No, not on me. It's in the cabinet.
Oh, we'll grab that for you. I'll put a link or something at the bottom of the video. But I think the pills are 125 milligrams. So my recommendation would be, so the first day, take one with a high fat meal. If you really wanted to try just seeing what it would do, take two. Kind of judge it, give it like between 1 and 3 days to kind of like feel what happens within your body and everything. But also, this was just my experience, and I don't think you've mentioned that you've had any problems with this either. So maybe it was just like a one-off thing. But I remember I think
I know where you're going with this. Go ahead. Yeah.
When I first started taking it, like felt really great. First 3 days were just like phenomenal, and then like the effects started to wear down. And then I think a day came where I like ate out or something, and I didn't have the supplement with me, so I didn't take it. And the next day I felt some like intestinal cramping going on. And so I think what happened was that if you consistently take it, it's almost like your body starts to rely on it. So you kind of have to wean yourself back down. Having said that, now if I miss a dose, I don't have any problem at all. So it could have been something else. It could have been unrelated. I'm not entirely sure what the situation was. It could have maybe just been adapting to a higher bile acid content. But it's just worth noting so that people can
definitely
have that on mind.
Definitely. Yeah. Whenever I first tried it, I tried it with dinner, and I would probably say that's a good starting place, because typically dinners are more going to be higher fat than like earlier meals. I know there were like some recommendations, or reviews on Amazon of saying people that like are having like bathroom trouble whenever they first started taking it, which could probably be from different reasons. But my guess would be like the meal wasn't big enough, or it didn't have that much fat, and maybe that caused a little bit more distress on your stomach. So definitely make sure it's a big enough meal and it's higher fat whenever you first start. For sure.
And again, it's worth noting that the bile acids you take doesn't pass through you unless it's bound to fiber. So your large intestine will resorb the bile acid, which is usually what's happening. So all the recommendations to lower cholesterol by eating high fiber, the reason that works is because when you eat the high fiber, it's binding to the bile acid that you're producing and then excreting it out of your body. So now in a healthy person, we need to create more bile acid. So let's use the cholesterol to create more bile acid. And then as you continue eating the high fiber, you're continually pulling it out. And that is a really good thing, because you want to keep the bile acid fresh. You don't want it to keep reabsorbing the same bile acid over and over and over again, because that's when it gets it's like an oil change. That's actually the way.
Actually, I was thinking about that as soon as you were saying that. Yeah. If you don't change your oil, that's whenever the gallbladder kind of gets all sluggy and sluggish and stuff.
Yeah, exactly. Like if you I know that nowadays they have like year-long oil changes with like some of the new cars, but like my car needs an oil change every 3 months or so. But if I go like 6 months without doing an oil change, then the oil will be way more sludgy, because it's the same oil that's been going through the car. It needs to be replaced. So it's the same thing with your bile acid, is that you want it to stay fresh. And the way you do that is by eating a higher fiber to bind it and take it out of your system. But you also don't want to run your car on no oil. So you don't want to just let the oil out and say, hey, we're done with the sludge. You're like,
exactly.
Good oil. And normally your liver will create it. In the low metabolism state, though, where liver is usually impaired in some way, then you need to supplement with it you don't need to, but it helps to supplement with it to take you up to that higher level.
Yes. Yeah. Yes. I love it, man. It's good stuff.
Yeah.
Real good stuff.
Hey guys, what's going on? It's Tim here. I hope that you enjoyed that episode. I wanted to show you real quick the bottle that I use. I think there's other brands that you can try as well, and I have not tried them. I'm not affiliated with this product in any way. I just wanted to give you something to go on. It's Nutricology right here. Ox Bile, 125 milligrams. They also have a 500 milligram option, but I would recommend doing the 125 milligram so that you have a little bit more flexibility playing with the dosages and starting to feel like the effects. 500 milligrams is a lot, so if you can do just one pill to start and then maybe try 2 pills, and then you have a little bit more flexibility with it. I hope that you guys really enjoyed this episode. We covered a lot of stuff, and Ox Bile is one of the supplements that I feel actually is worth trying. There's so many different options for supplements out there, and you can start to get carried away with it, where you actually start taking tons and tons of supplements. Me and Trent talk about that in a future episode that we'll be posting in a few days. But this is one that I think that is definitely worth trying, because the digestion of fats is so important for your hormonal health and for your metabolism, like we discussed in the episode. So thank you guys for watching. Please, if you liked this video, please click the thumbs up. Please leave comments if you have any questions, or if you have any anything you want to talk about, or any ideas of new topics that you'd like us to address. And if you have anybody who you think that might benefit from this video, please share it. We're trying to get this information out to as many people as possible, and your support and your sharing abilities really help us with that. So with all that, I think that's good. So I'm going to sign off here. Have a wonderful rest of your day. Thank you for listening, and we'll be back soon with some more content in the next few days. All right, peace.